You prepare to be able to go into a holiday meal and feel neutral. And maybe I walk out, maybe I overdid it a little bit, but I'm totally fine. And I still go to the next thing. I come out of the holiday season, same, feeling the same, looking the same, all that. Hello and welcome to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and I'm here again with Cassie, co-pilot Cassie. Say hi.
Hi, everybody.
I'm excited because we are here to talk about the holidays. This is essentially, I guess, our holiday episode. Cassie has a nice festive tree in her back in the behind her.
I know the Christmas spirit needed to come early in my
Oh,
home, that's for sure.
yeah. And you know what? This would not be where I put my menorah. But because it would be, too close to the wall, but perhaps I will, put one, here next time
Yeah,
for
we need a
some.
little holiday spirit next time.
Exactly. Yeah. My husband, he's Catholic. He does not, well, he grew up Catholic. He's
Mhm.
nothing, he's not really religious at the moment or
Yeah.
really much anymore, but, he's anti-tree and I'm like,
No.
yes. And I'm all about all about the festivities and all the accoutrement. But
Mhm.
he's not really into it, but maybe
Yeah.
now that we have a house, instead of an apartment in New York, and now we have a house because we live in Kentucky, he will change his mind. I'm going to get on him for
You just have to slowly chip away at the holiday spirit with them.
that. Exactly. But we are here today to talk about eating and the holidays because definitely that is something that in all my years of doing this work, I definitely have seen that the holidays can bring on a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. Um, and I feel like it's 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 warranted, and definitely there's so many things that happen around the holidays that can trigger that stress, that anxiety, and can be really, it can be really difficult to either stick to your goals, not fall back into old habits. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that this is a time of heightened emotional sensitivity. And I always find that when we can name these things or start to think about these things before they start to happen, it really helps with the ability to manage it and navigate through it once it does happen. I'm a huge believer in like pre-thinking about things. And so this is a tactic that I want you guys listening to take with you as you go through the holiday season. And I'm kind of giving you my advice in the beginning of the episode, but I definitely feel like that the ability to acknowledge early on some of the feelings that you might be having about the holidays coming up and starting to prepare and plan for how you're going to manage that and navigate that. I would say that that's probably one of the biggest tools that you could put in your toolkit to ensure that the holidays are going to be, can be less stressful for you. And so, Cassie, what's your experience with the holidays? I'll share some of mine, but
Yeah, sure. When I think about the holidays, I just think about like the chaos, to be honest with you, for the most part, when it comes to like social gatherings, I should say. And my family is very opinionated, I would say, and I often don't agree with them. And so I tend to, I don't know, when it comes to eating in the holidays, I find that I use that as an avoidance tactic because it's like, oh, well, that's I don't know, the neutral thing. Like there's always going to be like food around. And so it's like, oh, okay, don't really agree here. So like, let me go get a second plate, or like, let me go and like graze or something like that to avoid kind of like having those conversations. And so it's funny that you say that because like I don't think that or that we're having this conversation because I never really thought of it before like that. Especially because I mean, I am no stranger to like doing that. And then afterwards being like, why do I feel kind of shitty? Because I did that so much. I did a surplus of just avoiding it and just like kind of stuffing my face after. When I think about eating in the holidays, I think of that, not necessarily like, in other contexts, but more so with that specifically because and when I take a harder look at it too, I'm kind of like, oh, there's that avoidant like
Mm-hmm.
attachment, I guess you could say, like showing up for me and being like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of like get out of this like kind of situation I don't want to be in?
For sure. I definitely think that avoiding using food to avoid uncomfortable scenarios is for sure one of the huge ones. I can totally I can totally relate to that also because so much of the holiday eating style is buffet. I don't know
Hmm.
about you, but it's like the food is out for a really long time. And I feel like that is hard for people that emotionally eat and or even just aren't necessarily connected to their hunger cues or does have a relationship does do have a relationship with food that might feel a little bit more uh not always motivated by hunger per se, and you can feel a little bit more seduced by food when it's around. And I think that's what makes the holidays sometimes even harder because oftentimes it's not only the sheer amount of holiday gatherings or like events and there's also the stress of the social stress like you've said, but the amount of food that's there for that long of a time, I think could be a really, really big trigger. It definitely was for me. I found um, myself when I was struggling more, um, grazing, definitely like going back. And then all of a sudden it hits you that you've gone back so many times. And then that can kind of get you into the spiral because you're like, oh crap, I already just kind of like ate too much. And it kind of just takes you into that place of all or nothing. I wasn't perfect, and all that type of stuff. And I found that to be the hardest part because it almost seemed like it didn't end.
Hmm.
It was like there would be that one holiday party, and then 2 days later there's another one, and then and so I think for me and what I try to tell the women that I work with now is to remember that it's not about the food, right? A lot of the gatherings and a lot of the parties, like food is there, but it's not, you don't have to engage with it,
Hmm. Totally.
you
I
know?
think what's interesting too is like the accessibility of the food, um, and your kind of like desire to refrain from it or what have you. But what I think is interesting is a lot of times we think, oh, if I in the preparation aspect, I think a lot of people's minds goes to, can I bring my own food? And what's your perspective on bringing your own food to the holidays?
You mean like not because you're contributing to the meal, but because you're bringing your own meal?
Right, for maybe quote unquote safe foods that you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. So
Hmm.
for me, like, I think whatever you need to do to make yourself feel safe and good and prepared,
Hmm.
um, you do. I
Yeah.
think the hardest part is sticking to that.
Yeah, the opposition that comes with it.
The opposition that comes with it, the people's comments,
Mhm.
it's like that's why it's like to to heal from emotional eating, you have to build a strong inner power because it's less about the actual food per se, and it's so much more about the voices in your mind, like the voices in your head that even if you bring your safe food, it's like going to the gym, standing on a treadmill, but not really doing it, right? It's like you bring your safe food, you eat your safe food, but then you end up eating anyway, right? It's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of eating in advance of going to a party. Some people will say like, oh, well, I don't want to eat the food at the party, so I'll eat my lunch in advance, and then I'm going to go, or I'll eat dinner, my quote unquote healthy dinner at home, and then I'll go to the party, and I'll be less tempted at the party because I already ate. That never works,
Right.
because we're not eating out of hunger anyway. We're eating because of feeling pressure, because of wanting to participate, because of a lot of other emotional reasons why we're eating. And so I am a fan, to get back to your question, I am a fan of bringing your own food to something, but it's up to you to hold yourself responsible and say, I brought this. This is the food I'm eating here. And regardless of the other pulls that I have towards eating the other food, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. I
Right.
feel like that's like boundaries on hard mode, because you're not only like bringing something that's not like on the typical menu, but you have to essentially like stand empowered in it. You know what I mean? Where people are going to be like, oh, you're not going to eat, like, come on, eat like the turkey dinner, or oh, come on, eat these mashed potatoes or whatever, and compare like in lieu of the healthy food or the safe food that you brought with you. Because then it's almost like bringing attention to the food that you brought. And I think that, like you said, it's like you have to have a really strong foundation to be able to stand in that and be like, no, this is exactly what I'm doing. So it feels like the advanced version of it.
I mean, it's advanced, but it's it,
Yeah.
it's the whole thing. Yeah. So we're talking about the holidays now, but I mean, that's the advice I give to my clients and students all the time. But but like you just said, it's not something that you can, it's not like making sourdough bread. It's not like you can just get the instructions and then implement. It's something, and then you do it. You just follow the instructions, then you get the bread loaf, right? Like this is something that you need consistent support, reinforcement, practicing, right? It's like if you want to start deadlifting 350 pounds, you don't start with 350 pounds. You have to like train your muscles to be able to get to the 350 pounds. It could take months. It could take a year.
Right.
And so that's what I do with my mentorship with my students and my clients in the mentorship, because I've realized that in order to be able to show up to a holiday season with this strong core, this strong inner power, these boundaries, this ability to have that, it's not something that you're going to be able to just download a PDF with instructions and you're going to be able to do it for the holidays. It's something you have to train yourself up to do all the time. And I think that that's what's missing when it comes to people wanting to have success, overcoming emotional eating, being able to stand the holidays. Because to be honest, and even and specifically for people who want to lose weight forever, where they're not yo-yoing back and forth. Because to be honest, at this point in my life, I don't feel any different around the holidays than I do around my normal everyday eating. You've built a good life. From the outside, it looks like you have it all together. You eat clean, you work hard, you take care of everyone. But there's this one area that still feels impossible to master, and that is food. You can eat perfectly all day and still end up in the kitchen at night wondering why you keep doing this. You promise yourself you'll start fresh tomorrow, and I know you mean it every single time. But the cycle, it always finds its way back, especially when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, or when you're just tired of being the one that's holding it all together. And I get it because I lived that way for years. And what I learned is this: the problem, it was never about food. It was the pressure underneath it, the perfectionism, the self-doubt, the part of me that never felt safe and secure to just be me. And that's why I created the sober eating sequence. It's a proven 3-phase method that rewires the emotional patterns and the belief systems driving overeating so you can relax, trust yourself around food, and release weight completely naturally without force and without obsession. Because when your body feels secure, it lets go. The cravings quiet, the self-punishment, it softens, and food, it stops being the thing that you have to fix. This is not another plan. This isn't another rule book. It's a revolutionary transformation for your nervous system, for your body, and for your identity. So join the sober eating movement today. To me, it's like completely the same. Okay, maybe there's more food around, but the way that I behave around food and the way that I engage with eating is exactly the same in my regular life. And, it's exactly the same in November and December as it is in May, And so I think but training that ability to be able to have that consistent neutrality around the food, where it doesn't, where you don't feel like you're succumbing to all this seduction about food, and is something that you have to train up when it's not the holidays, to be honest.
Yeah. I feel like it reminds me a lot of what we talk about quite a bit, which is going into the wild, and getting that feedback that you were mentioning before, but going into the wild and like actually practicing the things that you've prepared for. And it might not be perfect and it might not go the way that you intend, but like you said, that planning and that kind of practice that you've built up to get to this point is like what you hold on to.
100%. And setting yourself up to win, really setting yourself up to win also. I had, one of the students in the mentorship, we have these weekly check-ins where they can send me a personal question, and I give them, personal coaching answer every week. And one of them, I was just reading it today, was like, I baked cookies for myself, my favorite cookies, and I took them out of the oven, and I only wanted to have 2, but I ended up eating most of them. And I remember this so clearly when I was struggling with binging and emotional eating. I love corn muffins, and I would make these corn muffins. And I'm telling you, I would have these conversations in my head before I made the corn muffins. Like it's almost like I was testing myself to see if I could make the corn muffins, 12 corn muffins, and not eat them. Like I needed to prove to myself that I'm healed because I can have one and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
It never worked. Right? And so I realized that I can't put a stumbling block in front of myself to make myself fail.
Right.
And I feel like that's sometimes what people do around the holidays. They give themselves permission to do these types of stuff that are not in service of the higher good for themselves. So one of the tactics that I teach my clients and students is to only keep, single servings of foods, of like snacks and indulgences that you like in your house at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So making a batch of cookies that you love where there is like a huge no-no, right? Because all it's doing is, especially if you're still struggling, like now I think I could do it. Now I've trained myself all these years. I'm recovered. I can make myself the corn muffins and probably keep them in the fridge and have one, but I'd probably have one a day. That wouldn't probably make me feel good, in the end, maybe. But I never in a million years would recommend making a dozen baked goods, a dozen cookies, and test yourself. And so you have to kind of say to yourself, how can I set myself up to win? Mm-hmm. And you want to do that going into any of any of the holiday stuff, any of that. And that's unique for every person. But that's another thing that you can ask yourself before you go into any holiday situation that's going to have a lot of food. How can I set myself up to win here? Is it bringing your own food? Is it, you know, having a, making sure that you consider in advance what emotional stresses that might happen, and you make sure that you giving yourself that nice soothing, you soothe yourself beforehand. So there are all these things that you need to do, because emotional eating isn't just about the food. A lot of times it's not just about having seductive foods there. It's like what you said, Cassie. It's like having social triggers that end up causing you sometimes to eat when, to eat. And that's not what you necessarily want to do.
Mm-hmm. I like that you said set yourself up to win, because I think a lot of, especially in the holiday situation, a lot of us go into it being like, with the game plan of like, what if I already fail? Like,
Yep.
what if I overeat? Like, or when I inevitably overeat, with like that failure plan in mind, it takes away from ever having the possibility of winning. And so when you kind of go in with a mentality of like, what can I do to prepare so that I can have a very successful day and like not be tempted or feel the emotions that I feel when I emotionally eat or any of those things, it's a much different mindset than going in and being like, okay, well, I need to have a game plan on how to repair the damage that I haven't already done, but don't trust myself not to do.
100%. Yeah. I mean, so many people go in with these really high expectations for themselves, and then before they know it, they have given up on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's because of our own inability. I don't know if it's an inability, but a lot of times it's because of our own lack of that inner strength, because of the conversations that we have in our head about what that inner strength is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're worried that it means we're dieting if we have boundaries around food. And I think that's a really big one, right? People want to be able to eat like they don't want to feel like they're dieting. So they set themselves up to fail
Mm-hmm.
when there's like a really big in-between area in that.
Yeah. I think what is interesting around the whole social gatherings and holiday season is that there's not a lot of verbiage around how to communicate that to the people that are around you. Like when I think to myself about explaining to somebody or setting that boundary, because you're not only setting a boundary with yourself, especially when it comes to the holidays, you're setting it with the people that are inevitably around you, whether that's family, friends, whoever you're spending the holiday with. And so I feel like it's not taboo is not the word I'm looking for, but just like uncommon, the language around it. We're not familiar with the language around what it looks like to be like, I'm full, or no, thank you. Like, and not only to have to say that to yourself, and stand in that and be like, I don't feel the need to have another serving or something like that. But also when somebody else is perhaps pressuring you, or like it could be a gentle, like, let me grab you another plate, or are you done? Like there's an additional temptation in that, to have somebody else say that. And so I'm curious on if you have any advice in terms of like what that language might look like, to stand empowered in that choice.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can relate to that. I mean, I would always tell, this still happens all the time, where I go somewhere and I'll be eating something and they'll be like, oh, did you have that? Did you have that quinoa salad? I made that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it specifically for you because I knew that you like that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to have that? You're not going to, okay, I guess, do you not like it? Right. So now all of a sudden you have to make, do you not like it? Or, you feel like you have to eat something because somebody else made it for you, or in order to make the other person feel validated, that you appreciate them,
Yeah.
and that you love them because you're eating their food, even if you don't necessarily want it.
Mhm.
Um, and so, what I think is really good to do is, I think it's just, I think that when somebody says to you, I think that the biggest thing to do is when someone says to you, um, here, have this, you can say to them, I am not, thank you so much. You could say, thank you so much. Maybe I'll have it later.
Mhm.
Right. So you don't have to necessarily say no. You don't need to clue in everybody to your motivations for why you're not eating. I don't think that that's necessary. And I think that that's something that we have to get comfortable with. And we
Mhm.
also have to get comfortable with the fact that people are going to they're going to have their own emotional reaction to our choice of behavior.
Yeah.
So they might have a negative reaction. They might say something that's judgmental, but I think that in general, emotional eating is a coping mechanism for not liking discomfort. And so getting comfortable with discomfort is like, is kind of what am I looking for? It's kind of like the secret sauce to overcoming emotional eating. And getting comfortable with discomfort is similar to, like I said before, going from never lifting a weight in your life to deadlifting 350 pounds, right? Like it's not something that you can, like I said, download a how-to guide. This is how you get comfortable with discomfort. And then all of a sudden you implement it and you're comfortable with discomfort. It's a practice and a state of being that takes a long time to grow within yourself. And so, and so it is uncomfortable every time I have to say to somebody, I don't want that. I get a weird look, I get a vibe, the person walks away. I'm like, oh, that was annoying. But that doesn't affect me anymore, in the sense of where I feel like uh, I'm either going to give in and eat it anyway to kind of be a people pleaser, right? I'm not going to be a people pleaser. And I'm also not going to fight with them about it, right? Like I'm not going to over explain and sit and give them my reason, right? No, no is enough, or just kind of, and no in a nice way, right? Like being like, maybe later, or, you know, um, I'm not hungry for that right now, but yeah, that looks really good. Like I'll try that later. Like there's gray areas, there's middle ways to show somebody that you appreciate the effort and you think that and that they've done a really good job and it's probably great, but you don't also have to engage in it for that to be uh for that to be a real thing. Yeah, that's great. Like, I love that. I think that's such a great message. And I think that that's a big practice of getting out of that perfectionist mindset, because on some level it's easier sometimes to be a perfectionist. It's easier to be a perfectionist because then you can let yourself go. And so I do want to name that a little bit in the holidays. I think a lot of people just go into this time of year just throwing it all away, and they're just kind of like, oh, it's never gonna, like, it's gonna be it's gonna be a shit show anyway, and whatever. And so I'm just gonna like I'm just gonna let it all go, and then I'll come back afterwards and start over, right? It's like that starting over mentality that never really gets us anywhere long term. And so when people are listening to this, your message, Cassie, is so being able to be okay with not being perfect, and learning how to stay consistently in a beingness of not being perfect takes practice, because as humans, we're much more comfortable with the black and white, with being perfect or letting ourselves go completely. And so if there's any just takeaways that I want people to have from this, is that it's up to you to say, I'm going to go down the middle road of good enough and not being perfect, and and continuing to try to have the boundaries, have the good communication skills, build that inner power even through the holidays that I need for the future, that's going to get me to a place where eventually it's like me, where I don't really feel a difference between the holidays and not holidays. That's the goal, right? That is, to me, that's the goal. The goal is neutrality. The goal is sobriety. The goal is that feeling of just calmness, 12 months out of the year. And I have calmness, and I still can have a piece of cake, have my holiday cake and indulgence and love it. It's not like neutrality and sobriety equals deprivation or not having anything. I still have every single thing, but the inner power is so strong that there's just, and that's like that is really the North Star of it all. And again, the takeaway is, don't fall into the trap of perfection or letting myself go, because if you already have that mentality now, it's going to take that's the mentality that needs to go away, right? I don't like a meal plan, like a diet, whatever. That's just a band-aid. You need to create the mentality of neutrality, 12 months out of the year, 7 days a week, every day of neutrality. And then you'll be able to, it sounds counterintuitive, but then that's the most flexible thing that you can do. Then you can eat everything. And then you have the trust that it's never going to be something where you walk away being like, oh my God, I feel so out of control, and now I have to start over. Yeah, for sure. And look, the gray area means that sometimes I walk out of a holiday party being like, oh my God, I feel so full. I overate. Like, I for sure overate there, right? This isn't about being perfect. The neutrality isn't about being perfect at never overeating. The neutrality is that, exactly. Like, I definitely in the holidays, and even regular weekends during the year, I'm like, oh man, I overate, like that. I feel full. But again, I can be in the discomfort of feeling full and have that knowing and trust that with the skills, that the inner power skills and the way that I know how to relate to food, now I will feel fine in a day or two, as long as I don't like let this overfull feeling make me feel like a failure and then lead me into the mindset of, oh, I'm just going to let it all go. And I think that the holidays give people that permission to do that because of society and because of the consumer culture of the holidays, right? It's like a 6-week period where we just kind of try not to let ourselves go. Like that's the marketing, right? Everyone and their mother is going to sell you on products to buy after you let yourself go over the holidays. Whereas I'm basically not doing that. And I'm saying, just have a neutral, 12 months out of the year, learn how to build that for yourself always. And that's something that might be a heavier lift a little bit in the beginning. It might take you like, months or even a year to like build that inner strength, but then that is the sustaining long-term solution, long-term support for yourself, long-term plan that you need for the rest of your life. And so you're not going to fall prey to these like, here's a product to buy in January and February after you let yourself go again. It's like you want the, luck. We always say like, I have clients, and this is something I used to say too, but I have clients that used to be like, I just want to be able to eat like a normal person. I want to be one of the lucky ones. And I'm like, luck is not something that it just happens. Luck is preparation. Like you prepare for that. You prepare to be able to go into a holiday meal and feel neutral and still be, and the neutrality includes eating all of the indulgences. And maybe I walk out like maybe I overdid it a little bit, but I'm totally fine. And I still go to the next thing and I'm having the same neutrality. And, I come out of the holiday season, same, feeling the same, looking the same, all that.
I love that. Project the cycle.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
I just love these conversations. And I think that they're so important, especially around this time of year. And I think that these are just like great pieces of advice going in to prepare to have a holiday that that you can experience the joy of the holidays and you experience like the community and all the things that we want to associate, the holiday time with, and kind of take the power back and away from these kind of destructive cycles that we might have been feeling throughout the year. And so I don't know, I think this is just great advice.
Yeah, and you know what? There is so much stress in the holidays. There is. There's a lot of social pressure. People sometimes see family that maybe they don't necessarily, would choose to see potentially as adults, and maybe there's just these kind of like subconscious things that arise. And so there's enough stress already with the holidays. We don't want eating and food to be another thing that ends up compounding on that stress, making us feel bad about ourselves, causing extra anxiety, extra, like an extra feeling of dread, because of how we ate.
Right.
We don't want to compound that on top of maybe some of the other kind of minutia and nonsense that we get from our social stuff with the holidays.
Agreed.
Right? We don't want to be our own bully with the food.
Yeah. Completely agree. I feel like we could talk about this for ages, as we always do.
I know. All right. Well, we'll wrap up for today. Cassie, as always, love these conversations with you. It's so great. I also got some feedback from people. They love these tandem episodes with you too. So lots of love for Cassie.
Yay. I love sharing this space with you. It's amazing. And I take away so many of great pieces of advice from them, not only talking to you, but being in your world. I love it.
Well, thank you so much and have an amazing holiday season. And to everyone listening, I hope you're enjoying your holiday season. I hope that you are giving yourself love, compassion, care, support. We appreciate you so much for listening and participating with this podcast. We love coming every week and giving you just more support, more content. And if you haven't yet, please like and review. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We love hearing from you. We love we love doing this with you. So thank you again. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.